Let's see this one.
A new gameplay trailer last week. Fantastic released a new gameplay trailer last week for their upcoming zombie survival MMO the day before. The footage itself was a tad underwhelming for a game that up until recently was supposed to release less than a month from now. Even so, I hadn't originally planned to make a video covering this gameplay showcase. Yeah, it wasn't great, it seemed bare bones and a bit underbaked, but for the most part, it's what I expected. In some ways, it was even better than I expected, which tells you where my expectations were sitting at the time, and I figured I've said basically all there is to say about this game in my coverage thus far, so I kind of plan to just settle into wait and see mode, like wait until the November release, or wait until some beta tests, or wait until some other major update takes place. You focus my energy on other games and other things that I want to talk about here on the channel. Well, plans changed when people started pointing out some odd things about the trailer, such as a few store-bought assets that they didn't even bother touching up, just plopping them into the game without a single change.
Again, I don't have a problem with this. Like, tons of games do this. Tons of games do this. Tons of films do it too. I've seen the side-by-side showcases of like a couple of Marvel movies where they show like a plane model where it's like a CG shot of an airport, and they have all these planes propping, getting ready to go out on the runway, and it's all CG, but it's done with like assets that they bought off Turbo Squid and different, places like that. So this type of thing is very, very normal. I don't find it a problem at all. Thank you, Wyatt.
Wyatt Parnell donated $4.99 through Super Chat. Here's $5. Take back what you said about signs. That's good movie, LMAO.
You can't make me. You can't make me. I won't. I don't care. I do what I want.
Catch me outside. How about that?
Yeah, over 500 people in here, guys. Like the stream, otherwise I'll start doing hot tub streams, okay? Like the stream. Or like the stream and I will start doing hot tub streams. Whatever floats your boat, I don't judge.
The fact that there looks to be a single animation cycle for zombies when they aggro the player. They all stomp their foot in identical fashion at an identical stance before charging.
That's a problem, yes. I think that's fair. It's very, very much copy and pasted. But, I mean, the asset flips, the problem with asset flip games specifically is when you're using free assets, there's zero effort that goes into making an interesting game. And you're basically just copy and pasting stuff over and over and over again into a game and then trying to sell it and see if this one's successful when your last game wasn't. But taking like a model of a car or a truck that you bought online and putting that in your game without tweaking it, that's not a big deal. It just isn't. Like, if that's what makes or breaks your game, then we have very different standards. Naughty Dog does this all the time. They buy assets. Santa Monica buys assets. EA buys assets. Ubisoft buys assets. Every major publisher does this because it's just more efficient than paying your internal team to do everything. So I don't find that to be outrageous at all. But the stomping thing, yeah, that's pretty stupid because it makes it so every zombie and interaction is the same.
The overall lack of mechanics across the board, a lack of anything going on. Like, where are the other players? Why are there only 15 zombies in this whole 10 minutes of gameplay? No events or just things happening in the world?
And I don't think he pulled 15 out of his butt. I think that they probably on the Reddit page counted how many zombies are in the whole showcase, and it's 15. So that's pretty funny. Hot tub stream now. Hold on, why is it not? The YouTube viewers.
Is happening in the world? Is there
okay.
anything to do beyond walking, looting, and two-shotting zombies that appear to be basically threatless? But specifically, what most caught my attention and spurred me wanting to make this video was the short sequence at the very beginning of the trailer. Easy to miss, it was only a few brief seconds, but it looked very, very familiar. Turns out it looked familiar because it is nearly an exact one-for-one, shot-for-shot copy of Call of Duty's Black Ops Zombies trailer. Other than the fact that it was made in the Unreal Engine using assets for the day before, everything is identical. The exact same shot composition, the exact same style, the exact same sequence. It is just a straight ripoff, or as some may call it, an inspiration. And that is a common theme. From the very first reveal, the day before has had many inspirations. The immediate obvious comparison when the game was first revealed that people made came from the visuals and the setting, looking quite similar to The Division. Although that one is easy enough to wave off, as it's just a realistic looking game set in a modern day post-apocalyptic city, modeled off of, say, someplace like New York or Boston. Unless you're going with some like heavily stylized visuals or graphics, a lot of games in this setting that are meant to look realistic with modern day tech, they're just gonna look exactly like this. So fair enough. And then there was the logo, which looked familiar at first glance because it's pretty much identical as the font font type and styling with this distressed markings as The Last of Us. This was a little strange, but not too crazy. Naughty Dog doesn't own this font after all, but given that they are similar games, both being zombie titles, it did feel a tad on the nose, but again, it's sort of easy to shrug off. But really, it was once a lot of the day before's marketing material started coming out, the things seemed a bit too similar to be pure coincidence or just to be referential. Take this shot, for example. You've got a character walking down a city street. It's pretty innocuous, right? Sort of like the visuals and setting, we can write this off because it's just a character walking down the street of a large city. But it's...
Yeah, I wanna be kind of flexible with this because like there's only so many ways that you can angle a camera. There's only so many ways that you can frame these things in a cinematic way. But yeah, I mean, the trailer thing's hard to justify and explain. I don't know how you just casually write that off. And you'll see there's more that's going to come that's like really hard to justify. Like there's a lot here that's like, I don't know how we explain this.
It's the composition of the whole thing that make it pretty plainly ripped off from the concept art of The Division. The angle of the shot in relation to the road, to the buildings, and to the skyline, the placement and the stance of the character who's in the foreground, as well as the other character in the background standing similarly right next to a vehicle. It's pretty obvious the inspiration they had when making this concept art for The Day Before came directly from this concept art for The Division. And there's actually quite a few other examples very similar to this. Some of them less obvious, like this screenshot here of a player being approached by zombies in a police station. It looks a heck of a lot like this screenshot from Resident Evil.
Yeah, come on. Come on, dude. It's a group of zombies in front of a player in a third-person perspective. This is what I mean. Like, there's a couple of good examples. This, though, is a freaking stretch. The gas station from the first one, I saw that, Brandy, but the gas station, like, he was doing a side-by-side showing of it, and it was like, yeah, it's a gas station, and then he's like, and see, there's a fence that goes around the gas station. I'm like, yeah, there's fences around gas stations all the time. There's 2 pumps. Yeah, a lot of gas stations have 2 pumps. The signs have a similar color scheme. Yeah, but like a lot of signs have similar color. Like it was a massive, massive stretch. And like if the game's bad because the gas station is similar to a gas station in another game, then the game itself was already, doomed. I just find that this is a particularly poor example. There's cases in The Day Before that are like really tough to explain away for them. Like, I don't know how you explain that. That's pretty rough. But this is one, this ain't it, fam. I don't think that this is.
I think the one that was most blatantly obvious and really told me they're clearly just ripping this stuff off is this particular shot of vehicles driving.
Yeah, so this is a really good example where it's so close. I can't just be like, there's only so many, it's parallel thinking. It's trucks and they wanted to do a shot, so they did this. This is really crazy.
Driving through snow on an incline with this dense forest in the background. This is quite clearly straight ripped off by this near identical looking shot from the game SnowRunner. But it doesn't even end there, because also in that sequence, the second half of it looks to be directly copied from a short sequence from the Last of Us launch trailer, which just like the COD Zombies trailer example, this is directly the exact same sequence, the exact same things.
This one, again, I'm a little less into, mainly just because, like, if we rewind, in one shot, like, for one, in these post-apocalyptic games, people run around with flashlights because it's dark. People have guns because they need to shoot stuff. And they're both third person. So if we take all of those things as a given, and then you're trying to make a trailer that sets the mood, you're going to be showing gameplay where the player has a flashlight and the gun, third person in a dark area with the flashlight on. This is like he's in a hallway and then he's in a hallway. I don't find this to be like, yep, totally copy and pasted it. This just feels like, this feels like parallel thinking. Like I think if you looked up most third person like horror thriller games, you can probably find shots and promotional materials that look very much like this.
Things that are happening.
And then the next shot is in a hallway with zombies rushing you. Yeah, they're zombie games, and in zombie games, zombies rush you in hallways. Like, and if I were making a trailer, I would probably do the same thing. It looks similar, certainly, but I think it's just because the genre is close to identical, and it's just, this type of thing is going to happen. The one-for-one shots are really hard to justify, but you also notice, like, he took this, it's 2 shots from trailers, and then they're like taken and put on top of each other to make it clear. But the section he's showing is only like a second and a half long, and it's because the sections before and after this didn't match. So it is a little bit selective in what he's pulling out to show you. It helps his argument, certainly, but I find it to be a little bit, this is not as compelling as some of the other stuff he's shown. Infernagon, thank you for the 250. I'm not actually sure what currency that is. Hold on, let me search it. What currency is that? Philippine peso. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that symbol before. But thank you for the 250 Philippine pesos. Very generous of you. You're cleaning your mechanical keyboard right now? Oh, that's awesome. That's actually very satisfying. I need to clean mine. It's been too long.
The exact same framing, everything is the same. It's one thing to just take inspiration from other games, to reference them or even pay homage. Like if you respect a game and you want to reference it here and there, that's understandable. It happens. It's not too crazy. But it's an entirely different thing if you're just literally straight ripping off the hard work and effort of other development teams, which is plainly what has been happening here in the day before. There are just way too many examples of the marketing of the day before that are direct copies of the marketing of other successful games. And there's probably more examples that we just haven't caught yet. These are just...
Yeah, and this I think is fair, where it's like there's some good examples, there's some where it's like, probably not, but maybe. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And with the day before, there's a hell of a lot of smoke. And meanwhile, the devs are like, nope, everything's fine. We're having a great time. We're doing great. We're doing
just
great.
The ones that people have spotted so far. I'm pretty confident that more examples just like this are going to come out in the future. Okay, so they've copied a lot of stuff with their marketing, with their name, with their trailers, all of stuff. We got that, right? What about the game? Well, since I'm making this video anyways, we might as well talk about that trailer because I do think there's a lot to talk about. So this was 10 minutes of raw...
Eyes up, boys. Perverts.
Uncut gameplay, which mostly amounted to the character walking around first through these suburban neighborhood and then through parts of the city. Now, in those 10 minutes, what they did was a couple of minutes of weapon customization. They opened a few containers, like some cabinets, some vehicles, and some coolers here and there. They shot exactly 12 zombies. I went through and counted them. And then there was one moment when they drank some water, which replenished what looked to be a thirst meter. I was pleased to see what appears to be this raw, uncut gameplay. This looks miles better, and it looked like actual gameplay, unlike a lot of their other previous gameplay trailers. However, this whole thing was very noticeably light on mechanics, on other players, on enemies, and once again, it makes clear that the game's visuals have gotten a serious hit since its first reveal. So first, let's talk mechanics. There just wasn't a lot going on. What we saw was walking, shooting, looting, drinking, and weapon customization. That appears to be the extent of what players can do in the game. Mechanics-wise, it's pretty bare bones. I would say that this...
And again, my problem is that it's just not clear what you do. Some people are like, well, it's like other... It's like other zombie post-apocalyptic games where you just load in and you just do whatever and you survive. And there's no clear goal, there's no clear objective, you just kind of exist in this world. Okay, if that is what it is, it's not a game for me. I would like there to be end game content. I'd like there to be some clear goal, like, oh, I'm upgrading weapons because this skyscraper you can go into has super difficult high-level zombies, and if you get in there, it has the best loot in the game, and maybe that's how you get to the credits rolling. But in order to get in there, you need some amazing gear and weapons, and in order to get that amazing gear and weapons, you have to grind and search and upgrade your stuff. That at least makes sense. There's a goal, right? Doesn't have to be a good goal, but it's a goal. Like No Man's Sky, get to the center of the galaxy. It's a goal, that works. It might be stupid, but it works. It's something. But as of right now, like, we don't know what the goal is in the game. We don't know what the point is. We don't know whether or not there even is something there. It's just a big sand pit for you to run around in. And for some people, again, that's enough. But for me, I look for a little bit more.
Level of mechanics, it just feels very dated. It's sort of what we expected from the zombie survival games from like 10 or so years ago. We're talking things like DayZ, H1Z1, and even the absolute mess that was the game War Z. These were games with really simple, minimal levels of systems that you can engage with, which were good enough back in the day because of the thrill that came from engaging with enemy players, combined with these brutal survival mechanics of losing everything if you happen to die. That was fun enough in and of itself. But when you take a look at modern day zombie survival games, they've just come a long way, offering way more depth of things to do. I mean, you got examples like State of Decay 1 and 2, World War Z, The Division, while not a zombie game, is still this post-apocalyptic open-world MMO where there's...
Yeah, I've said it before. Iron Cyclops, Caleb, who hangs out with us every once in a while, he has played a lot of The Division, a lot, and he showed me his main character, and it's so broken. The damage numbers clip off the screen when he's shooting stuff.
$5 through Super Chat.
Thank you, Zach.
Luke, did you see that Atomic Heart put out PC specs and a small Q&A?
I did not. We have another video on Atomic Heart that we'll check out that allegedly I mentioned in, which, worries me, but we'll we'll check it out. I'm always down for more information and to be corrected on things, so we'll check it out. But we'll investigate that.
There's a ton of stuff going on, a ton of systems to engage with, and a lot of liveliness to the environment. Heck, even 7 Days to Die, which at this point is like over 10 years old, has way more going on with like deep crafting, with base building, with tower defense, and tons of sandbox elements. And when you compare these modern day zombie survival games to what you can do in the day before, which again amounts to walking around, looting containers, shooting, crafting and weapon customization, and eating and drinking, I just think that this base level alone isn't going to cut it. It's just not going to be enough. Now it can be, like some of these modern zombie games that I referenced do have way more mechanics, but they're also mostly like single or small scale multiplayer, whereas the day before is being called an MMO. And if it truly lives up to being an MMO, if there are a large number of players or NPCs in any given server, these extremely light levels of mechanics and systems, they could be enough. The problem is that we really haven't seen any MMO elements. We haven't seen large numbers of NPCs. We haven't seen threatening NPCs. We haven't seen anything related to any sort of events or things happening in the world other, again, than walking around and shooting. And we haven't even seen other players. We haven't really seen PvP engagements. Let me talk about this. Some of the prior gameplay reveals reportedly were showing PvP, including that very first trailer. But given by this point how obvious it was that that first trailer was just a vertical slice, I'm not convinced that those were real players. And actual game developers have expressed similar concerns. We saw this video where they were pointing out that the character movement seemed very unlikely to be controlled by a real player, and it was much more probable just scripted AI. And I would say the same goes for that one brief short gameplay video that they released, which reportedly was showing PvP fights. I am also not convinced that those were actual PvP engagements. As of today, they are still calling this game an MMO, but given everything else that's happened with it, I would say we'll be lucky if we get server sizes of like even up to 50 players. I'm expecting.
Wouldn't it be amazing if the game launches and they took out multiplayer? They're like, yeah, never mind. We couldn't get it working. Never mind. They're like, we didn't expect to see the pricing of having servers. It's very expensive. We can't. we can't do that. So never mind. They just move on.
Very, very small scale shared world. The higher they push that number, probably the absolute worse the performance.
Oh, yeah. The multiplayer releases the day after the day before.
Kind of beating a dead horse at this point. We understand that the game isn't ever going to look as good as it did during that initial teaser, during that vertical slice. Now, shortly after releasing that 10-minute gameplay video, they actually followed up with a short clip of someone playing the game. Now, I've seen people breaking this down saying like, hey, this person's inputs don't...
This is so fucking... This was so dumb. They're like, this will show all those annoying YouTubers and streamers who keep calling our game fake. We'll show this guy doing it. Plus, this footage, this camera is very steady. So he propped this up. It's like a webcam, or maybe like there's a little bit of bokeh, not much, but it looks like a decent camera. So they set this thing up on a tripod over his shoulder and filmed him while he's doing it. More realistically, he set up the camera on the tripod. And then filmed himself doing this. So like, it's just freaking weird. I've never seen something like this.
Line up with what's happening on screen. That's certainly believable with everything else that's happened with this game, but I'm not quite confident that this is a like fake live gameplay recording. I do agree though, like with much of everything else, it seems off, and it's possible that they faked this recording, but I'm not exactly sold on that.
Again, if I was told by somebody in chat, they're like, I don't think you're actually playing, I would like take a moment, I'd pause, and I'd be like, wiggling the mouse like crazy, and then I slap the keyboard a bunch, and I would demonstrate, no, this is running in real time. You can see it here. It's stupid to think it's not. But like, this is just a weird... This is so cringe.
But we'll say, hey, could be the case, right? So that was that. I watched the gameplay, was a bit underwhelmed, but at the same time, I thought it was better looking than what I was expecting them to deliver. It really seems like those unpaid volunteers have been working really hard recently to try to put something together for this game. It's actually impressive how much better it looks than what I expected them to show us. Fantastic. I think you should give them a raise, really. I would at least double their pay. One more quick thing, though, before we move on. A few days ago...
So sassy. So sassy.
People started noticing that a handful of the assets in this recent trailer do appear to have just been purchased from asset packs, as in they didn't make them themselves. Specifically, this light truck collection looks to have been used. The yellow tow truck can be seen numerous times throughout the trailer, unaltered, it seems. Every detail looks identical to that from the asset pack. They didn't even bother changing the color, the text on the side, or the front bumper. Even the number of red stripes are the same. It looks like they did pretty much nothing.
Yeah, again, what do you want them to do? You want them to buy the asset and then change the number of stripes? What? Like this, I've had this problem with Force Gaming stuff before. I love your stuff, dude. If you ever see this, let me be clear. But you have like 9 really good points, and then one that's just dog water. Like, and it diminishes the argument, because like I'm with you throughout all of this, and then you hit this point, and I'm like, okay, but this is just dumb. Like, if the point is that they aren't even making their own assets. Okay, I get why that would be put there, but like every studio does this. Every company does this. This is an extremely common practice. Like even in, Assassin's Creed games, which we're going to talk about in a bit, they copy and paste assets from The Division, from previous Assassin's Creed games, from their Watch Dogs stuff. They all copy and paste and share it together. It's extremely common to flip and reuse assets, because why wouldn't you? And with this stuff, it's a small studio, allegedly, with almost no staff. And so it's not shocking at all that they would buy packs of like game or car models and things like that. And so to suggest that they need to like retexture them just cause seems ridiculous. Like I don't understand how this is a useful thing to bring up. Like, yeah, they use asset packs. That's extremely it would be weirder if they weren't using asset packs, frankly. That would be a weirder thing.
The only thing that does appear to be different is the driver's side window glass is shattered out. And I spotted this exact truck, by the way, on 4 occasions in the trailer. In 4 different spots, this tow truck, as it is in the asset pack, with the exception of the shattered glass, it's there. They just like copy pasted it all over the environment. And this was just in a short clip, like a 10-minute segment, a fourth of which they spent looting and customizing. They're coming across that one tow truck quite often. It seems that company was pretty busy right up until the start of the apocalypse. Also from that same collection.
I mean, yeah. Yeah. But like this, again, all of this is just another example of when a studio gets into a mess like this that they've created for themselves. Now the whole perception is that everything's fake, everything is garbage, the whole thing is copy and pasted as a mess. Like, and so these Redditors are going in and finding copy and pasted assets and assets from asset packs and stuff. And they're saying, oh, well, like, so clearly they're just copy and pasting stuff. And it's like, even amazing games that are extremely high in terms of fidelity, copy and paste assets. The Last of Us Part 2, I would bet you very, very good money that in those sections where you're walking like through old streets and roads and you're walking past all the cars, I would bet you extremely large amounts of money that you will find repeated car models throughout that as you walk through. Because they're assuming you're not going to be nitpicking how many identical cars show up as you walk through the levels and along the streets, because you're probably focused on the other systems. So they don't stress about it, because why would they? And so for this, the reason people are noticing is because everything else is so incredibly lacking. But I think the reason that I'm kind of like peeved by this example is just because this is not the strongest point. Like what you should be focusing on is how lackluster everything else is, or at least clarifying that the reason you're seeing all of this repetition and all of this stuff is coming up is because of how lacking the rest of the game is, if that makes sense. Lucid, thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate you.
We do see this cooler truck. For this, they do appear to put at least some effort into it. They color swapped the front cab from white to orange, and it seems like they fine-tuned some things when it comes to like the front lights, the bumpers, and the side of it, but it does appear to be from that same truck collection. People have also spotted the asset pack sources for like the public service vehicles, so things like school buses, ambulances, and fire trucks. And I would say it's safe to assume that most, if not all, of the vehicles in this trailer were probably also sourced from asset packs. It's just a matter of finding where they come from.
And why does it matter? Like, this is, again, it doesn't matter. Every company does this. It's not like this is an unethical thing. They bought the packs fair and square from a service that allows you to buy the packs of stuff. It just makes like everything easier. Yes, again, sorry guys, the mods are going to kick my ass if I don't ask you to like the stream again. We need likes. Otherwise, my mods will kick my butt. So please like the stream, and then I'll shut up. Exactly. That's why asset packs exist. Yeah.
What's more, though, is it looks like that entire residential neighborhood where the player first explores sourced completely from a single asset pack, that being the Residential Houses modular packs, which were published by Prop House on the Unreal Engine marketplace, the most recent version of which just went live on December 19th, and this does appear to also be used in this gameplay trailer, which would imply that they have only added these assets into the game in the past month and a half, which makes...
And this is something that's important to note. This is useful information. The fact that there's an asset pack of houses that are decorated and everything, and that was released in December, mid-December, and in the gameplay showcase they're showing a clip of the player exploring these houses that were only first available in December. That's really concerning because that tells us that it was thrown together since then. And that's bad. Especially because the perception is that they're just throwing this crap together in the moment in order to like satiate concerns over it being fake. Exactly. Raise the flag, boys. Red flags in chat. Red flags in chat. It's just like, see, this is worth bringing up. This asset pack with the date tied to what we're seeing in the trailers. They're showing off a section of gameplay featuring stuff that released in December, so it has to have been made since then. And so as a result, we know that this thing was thrown together not months ago and it's been in the works, but just now. That confirms this. That's actual useful information. But like buying a car asset pack, that's not actually that useful. If they did come out and they said, we found out that car asset pack, if we found out that released in December as well, and it's like, okay, so the whole damn thing was thrown together in the last month and a half. That's useful. That makes a difference. But just using asset packs is no sin. That's really not a concern at all. But this is very concerning. Major, major red flag.
In this gameplay trailer, which would imply that they have only added these assets into the game in the past.
Yeah, but Luke, the game is ready. We just didn't copyright the name, so we're in a legal battle. Yeah, exactly, Adrian. But the game is totally real, and we've had it. We're basically ready to launch. It's just because of this other thing that's really unfortunate. Have I played Destroy All Humans? I played a little bit. I didn't like finish it, but I have played it a little.
Past a month and a half, which makes you wonder, what have they been up to the past 4 years that they've reportedly been developing this thing? Now, beyond people online spotting the similarities, the asset pack developer themselves has come out to confirm that these assets do indeed come from the packs that they made. On December 14th, they tweeted, I think I can spot some things right here, with an embedded screenshot of the day before. And then just recently, on February 2nd, they said, nice to see some of our residential houses assets for Unreal Engine being used by Fantastic in the day before. Excellent use and remix of our work. Great to see. Now, people are also claiming that all of the trash and debris.
And one of the things I thought initially when I saw that, I was like, okay, what is the one possible explanation for this that would not be bad? I was like, okay, the one thing that could be okay, or could make this more okay, I guess, would be if they came out and said that, no, the day before devs, Fantastic, they made those housing packs, and after they developed them for this game, they posted them for sale on those online shops as a way to increase revenue for the company. Because why not? They're like, we made it. We don't need it proprietary, so we'll sell it. That would be okay. Yeah, you made it a year ago and now you're posting it for sale so you can get some extra stuff. I get that. But that's not what happened at all. That's not. Because the company that made it came out and is like, nope, we're not associated with them. We're our own thing.
In the gameplay trailer looks to be sourced from this trash props asset pack, also found on the Unreal Engine marketplace, although I am less certain of this as I've not found many obvious examples when I looked, but maybe I need to look a little bit harder. Now, I do want to make something
No, don't look any harder because it doesn't freaking matter.
clear. There is nothing wrong with using asset packs in your
Did I pass gas? No? Should I? I think it was the candle. This is one of those like wicks that flickers really loudly.
game. In fact, it is why they exist. Like, people put these packs together for developers to buy and use. It is the entire
Is that
point.
the thing now? I'll add it to the soundboard. Just like, hold on. So as we go, we just randomly throughout videos, I toss in farting sounds. I'm like, no, I didn't do anything. Yeah, I like that.
Of the Unreal Engine and other similar marketplaces. It's basically kind of like freelancing parts of the asset development process. This is not uncommon. In fact, one prime example would be PUBG. Most of that game, when it came out, was just an asset flip. They purchased asset packs, put them together in their
Hold on,
example.
I want to get this clear. Yes, he's right.
It's basically kind of like freelancing parts of the asset development process. This is not uncommon. In fact, one prime example would be PUBG. Most of that game, when it came out, was just an asset flip. They purchased asset packs, put them together in their game, and it subsequently became one of the biggest battle royales on the market. It's not unheard of. It's not even really wrong in any sense at all. There's nothing wrong with using asset packs. Again, it's why they exist. In fact, as a player, I don't even care if a company is buying most or all of the assets in their game. If there is a good game there, if it's fun to play, if it mechanically feels good, if the premise is sound and there are good systems, it doesn't matter to me if someone else made the assets. But in the case of the day before, I am not confident in the slightest that the gameplay systems, mechanics, and everything within it, the experience of playing, will offset the fact that they are also apparently just flipping assets on top of it. I think the
Okay. And I get that. I would just be like, my point would be, well, then why did we spend 15 minutes going through a list of asset flips if you're just like gonna say that it doesn't actually matter, but the concern is that it's, you know, asset flips on top of lackluster gameplay. So like, what is the team doing? If the team is buying assets to avoid doing that work themselves so that they can spend time doing other stuff, what's the team doing? Because the gameplay itself looks sucky.
A real thing to consider when we talk about this, because you could point to any one of these and say that's nitpicking, that's nitpicking. In and of themselves, none of these things are really a big deal. It's when you add them up. Like the fact that the logo font is the same as The Last of Us, not a big deal. The fact that they've got screenshots and artwork with the identical framing of existing games like The Division, Resident Evil, and SnowRunner, not a big deal. Store-bought assets which appear barely touched up and just plopped in the world, not a big deal. The fact that they delayed their game a month from launch, not once but twice, the first time to upgrade to UE5, despite which, by the way, the game's visuals degrade with every update it seems, and the second time because of this trademark dispute. Speaking of that trademark dispute, they reportedly didn't know about this, forcing them to remove the game from Steam, delay the launch by 8 months, and then push back the gameplay reveal, which later, by the way, we did find out, since the entire trademarking process is public, you can go look it up yourself right now. They absolutely knew that this trademark thing was an issue, likely back in August, if not at the latest in November, when they were sent a notice that their trademark was not being approved. And then, just a few days after they say the trademark dispute was the reason for delaying the game and not revealing the gameplay trailer, they sat down and spoke to IG.
Yeah, so again, either they are lying and saying that they didn't know this was going on when they did, or they're just incompetent to the point where they don't realize this. Like, again, it's just... There's no good answer.
IGN and said, hey, we were actually planning to delay the game prior to the trademark thing, which then means that that entire statement they published about trademarks being the reason for all those things, that was just a lie. They're like, they sat down with IGN and they were just like, oh yeah, we lied about all of that. We were planning to delay the game anyways. A week later, the trademark dispute is apparently resolved as they're able to now show the gameplay. However, the delay is still necessary and the game still hasn't returned to Steam. The fact that the developer's past work includes not one but 2 early access releases that they abandoned shortly after releasing, taking the money and basically running. And
yeah, that's extremely concerning. That especially is concerning. It was only 15 minutes because you kept pausing. No, when I said that, the video was 15 minutes in. If you go back to 15 minutes, that's when he made that point. We paused it, and then I said 15 minutes. Why did we just spend 15 minutes going through asset flips? Got to keep up. Got to keep up. We move quick.
And the fact that the trailer shots and compositions are identical and in the exact same order as the COD Zombies and The Last of Us trailer, you could point to each one of these individually and be like, not a big deal, not a big deal, not a big deal. And I would agree, but when you stack everything up one on top of each other, this exhaustive list, it's got to have us stepping back and being like, guys, this is kind of a big deal. But is it a big deal, really? Like, what's the fuss? After all, this is just an upcoming zombie game from a small indie developer who, as we mentioned, does have a bad history of games. So why are we expecting anything? And we've seen a lot of games come and go on Steam like this, many of which were bad. So who cares if they're copying a bunch of stuff? Who cares if they're using store-bought assets and barely changing them? Who cares if they're constantly lying? Who cares about any of this? Well, a lot of people, apparently. In all my years, 10 plus years on this platform of talking about games, I have not followed a story about a game from such a small indie studio with such a poor history that we should have zero expectations from, that so many people seem to be so invested in. And I think it really boils down to two major things. The first is there's just huge interest in this concept, the idea of a brand new, good-looking, open-world zombie survival MMO. A lot of people find that appealing. And the second thing is, yes, that initial trailer looked really good, which got people really excited. Personally, my interest stems not only from, yes, I would like a new game in the genre, but also just by how absurd everything is. Like, initially, it was pretty simple. I thought, wow, this is a really good-looking trailer for a game from a studio who's not made really good-looking games before. That's pretty surprising. But then, as time has passed, and more has been revealed, and more things have come out about the developer, about the game itself, it all has just gotten crazier and crazier. Just when I think it can't get any weirder, it gets weirder at every...
I mean, I'll be real. I think a lot of the reason that this is so entertaining is it's just schadenfreude, like, at the end of the day. It's that people love watching the cringe, the funniness, the absurdity of a studio trying to tell you with a straight face that they're totally making a real game. Meanwhile, it's like pretty clearly not. It's just garbage. And it's almost like the day before it's turning into a lol cow, but a game, like a game lol cow, where it's it's not self-aware, it's outrageous, and it totally misses the point as to why people are interested in it. And so it's thoroughly entertaining to watch them squirm and try to make something. So I do find that interesting. But I mean, for me, like, was I ever going to be that interested in the day before? Probably not. Like, it's not the kind of game that I usually play. I'm not usually into like zombie post-apocalyptic stuff like this. In MMOs, to be clear, that's not games I've typically done before. But it's so thoroughly entertaining to watch this happen. It's very, very, very funny to me. So That's my big takeaway. He took my thing.